dragons are mythical creatures. They've never actually existed, fire-breathing dragons. But if you look at the history of them, they've been spoken about in many, many cultures, but nobody's ever actually seen one. So part of it was that I looked at this dragon as something that who I am now is somebody that I never thought I could be, a mythical creature. So that's part of it. But the biggest part of it is that if you want to get rid of the monster in the closet or the scary clown under the bed, you have to go hang out with it.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
You like that little callback?
I love it.
But it might be a word that I need to remove from my vocabulary because
maybe
I didn't know. I really don't know I didn't know another way in order to express that. The things that they didn't like, the things that didn't work.
So much better than your dad, though.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you're the evolution, and what maybe it's not your job to get it right. Maybe your son will progress because of the good work that you've done and do it even better. And that's another interesting thing about being a man is sometimes we feel like we have to be the best man. Like I'm at a place in my life right now where I'm okay with the fact that my kids will do better at this than me.
So you move all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, you do your own stuff and you're out there. Now, your father did the same thing. That's why I say, you know, you got to be careful that we don't want to become our parents, the bad things anyway.
Sure,
we want the good things. But in order for you to be JC Doornick the Dragon, you have to get your name out there. You're going to, you know, you obviously went to Chicago and, you know, you were away from your family. How do you balance that with your newfound life? You know, I want to be there with because I struggle with this too. Like I'm traveling here. There's a part of me that I want to do things that make my kids proud.
Yeah.
All right.
Point.
I want to make my kids proud. I want to say, you know, my dad had a lot of faults, but at least he was a good dad.
That's my definition of success is my kids saying that's my dad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so I juggle with that. Sure. And that's why I try not to go away for too long because I miss them. I miss them terribly. I miss them as soon as I'm out the door. But I also want to make them proud. Say, hey, listen, my dad did that. My dad did that.
I'm in an interesting place in my life where I've structured my life to be a home-based. I used to travel 4 times a month, and I don't do that. And the interesting thing is that if I'm telling the truth, I used to like going away. Right? I didn't like seeing my kids, but I used to like going away. I don't know why. I just maybe felt important or something like that. I don't like going away from my family anymore. So that's important. It's like you could try to fix this stuff, but I don't want to be away from my wife. I don't want to be away from my daughter. My kids are in college now. So the first thing I could tell you is anytime I travel, I bring them with me if I can. And if not, it's a nightmare for me. I do not like sleeping in a bed somewhere without my wife. So for the person that's listening to this and say, how do I balance this all out? I'm just going to ask you to check yourself and just check and see if you like going away.
It's the wonderful life scenario for me.
Yeah.
I see what my life is is like without them. And every single time.
Kids are older though.
11 and 14.
Oh, okay. So you're right in it.
So I see what my life would be like if I was alone. So when I'm sitting in a hotel room, you want to talk about a workaholic? I don't stop. Like I really don't stop because I got a void that I need to fill. I don't like it. Unfortunately, there are some necessities that I need to travel for. And they understand that. My wife understands that. But we just, so one of the things we just did, we were up in Cops and Campers in Ithaca, New York for an event. And the organizer, Eric Reynolds, was so gracious. He says, bring your family. And I was able to bring my kids with me. I didn't like speaking in front of my wife. That I didn't like. It made me very uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Because some of it has to do with her and it dredges up a lot of feelings with her. But I got to watch my kids hang out with each other and go fishing, and we ran in the morning, and it was nice. It was a different experience. And years ago when I was traveling, before I was a cop, I was traveling coast to coast. I was single. I was unattached. I used to see one of my bosses, and he would pay for a plane ticket for his wife, and he's like, "We make it a mini vacation, when I travel." And that's the point where I want to get to, and that's where I'm working towards. That's my goal, is to make that happen.
I mean, I don't want to get into some deep stuff with you right now, but we're all the dominant forces of our lives. If you want something, you just have to change the structure. And it's risky, but we're gonna die one day. You and I have had a brush with it, so I'm just in a place right now where I put my desire to be with my family before my desire to be successful, because what I've noticed now is that what gets my kids to say that's my dad is not my money and not my success and my accolades. It's that I'm there and I'm present. You know what I mean? So I've just flipped a switch, and I just became that guy where I put the things that matter most first. Now, you got to make money. So what I started to do is I started to structure a home-based business model for myself. But I made the decision to first be present. Now that's scary when you're the provider.
Well, you have to figure out how to get from here to there. Like, here's where you want to be.
Yeah.
All right.
I just said fuck it.
Well.
No, I know it's scary, but I just want you to know that's how I did it, because it was that important to me. And my wife, if she was sitting here right now, she would tell you that I drop everything for my family, right? But at the same time, I've structured myself to make passive income now. And I worked my ass off to get to that place. I mean, my wife and I were about to launch relationship retreats. Now, that's going to be a great business model and everything, but it's going to be time for my wife and I to be together.
That's a good model, because you worked your wife into it.
Yeah.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit.
All right.
Because first time I meet you,
Yeah.
I'm in the lobby of, I forget what the name of the theater was in Chicago. And you come up to me.
Yeah.
So I'm JC Doornick. People call me the Dragon.
The Dragon.
And I get sort of taken back. I'm like, well, you can call me Nighthawk.
That's right, like the Step Brothers.
Step Brothers. You can call me Nighthawk.
When I saw the Step Brothers, I was cracking up. Yeah.
So it kind of caught me off guard.
Right.
I want to get into that. I know the genesis of the dragon. The dragons are circling you, and you're becoming easy prey for them. How did you transform into this dragon?
So, did you ever see the movie Avatar?
Sure.
Okay, so you know how the part of that one scene where they have to like get on those like pterodactyl things and bond with them? So keep that in mind. So I went from this phase of my life where the things that I was afraid of, I equated as dragons, like I said before. So the natural step, the action step that I took was what I thought I needed to do, and that was to become a dragon slayer. So there's a lot of dragon slayers out there, these people that are fighting through things, and Tony Robbins and, breaking through and all that stuff. And what's interesting about dragons is dragons are mythical creatures. They've never actually existed, fire-breathing dragons. But if you look at the history of them, they've been spoken about in many, many cultures, but nobody's ever actually seen one. So part of it was that I looked at this dragon as something that who I am now is somebody that I never thought I could be, a mythical creature. So that's part of it. But the biggest part of it is that if you want to get rid of the monster in the closet or the scary clown under the bed, you have to go hang out with it. And if you really, really want to realize what your superpower is, we talk all about embracing the suck and getting uncomfortable and all that stuff. You have to bond with your fear. So when I wake up every morning as the dragon, that is my way of saying that the things in life that scare me the most, I welcome to the point where I am them. I've embodied them. And what's interesting, when you do that, you start to realize that those dragons were not swooping over my head waiting to kill me. They were trying to get me to realize that they were there to help me. And I never knew it, because if you change the way you look at things you look at change. And that's what I do.
Well, okay. I'm gonna give you a prime example to prove proof. You don't need proof of concept. You have enough proof of concept.
I'll take the validation.
The guy who shot at me, Anthony Vocatore.
Yep.
He held so much power over me because I felt like he ruined my life.
Perfect example.
Felt like he ruined my life, and if I ever saw him, I'd beat him bloody.
Yep.
Now, one day, and I don't know why this happened. I cannot put my finger on it. I started just thinking, and I said, God, what did this guy have to do to shoot at police officers twice? Right. What kind of pain was he feeling? And I started to empathize, and I started to feel sorry for him and give him even a little bit of pity.
Yeah.
And what happened was all that power that he had over me, it disappeared overnight, like in an instant. And what did I do? I was in a dark place. He was in a dark place. Now we have some sort of common ground. And and I say it a lot, if I'm sitting across from him, people think, oh, you probably killed him. No, I'd probably shake his hand because once I did that, it put me right where I was supposed to be.
It's your power.
I like my life now. I like doing this show. I like speaking to different people.
You wouldn't be doing this if not for him.
Never.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting about that is that doesn't mean that you have to say what he did was okay. What I'm talking about is the more you run from things, the bigger and badder they get. But if you confront things, that's one step. But if you bond with them, the things that scare me the most. So when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm scared, or I get an anxiety attack and I'm walking out on stage in front of 15,000 people and I think I'm going to die or anything like that, I get excited. I get excited now because I've shifted the way that I look at things, and that's the work that I do. I mean, what I do for a living right now, you know, through my books and my private community and coaching and things like that, I just have a goof-proof system that I teach people that helps them learn how to change the way that they look at things. That's all people need to learn how to do. It takes time, but if you can change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And I think that's the most powerful thing that a human being can learn how to do.
So go back and look at the 11-year-old J.C. Doornick and that moment when your mother's sitting on the stairs in her underwear, crying her eyes out.
Licking my lips.
Licking your lips. That moment, which traditionally probably not a happy moment in your life, but once you realize that moment and now where you are now, look at how great that moment turned out for you.
It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Crazy to say that stuff.
But I still don't like my birthday.
Me neither.
My wife will tell you it's a nightmare to throw a birthday party for me, but I'm working on it.
By the time this airs, I will have turned 50. I'm not looking forward.
I just turned 53. I got you.
I am not looking forward to that birthday.
That's a good one.
And but somebody just asked me if I dye my hair, and I do not dye my hair, so I'm happy. I'm happy with that.
Good hair.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So, you know, those little things that you see as a detriment, once you turn them on their ear to piggyback on what you're saying, they become your strength, they become your power. And your suffering then stops being something that you're embarrassed about, and now you lead with it.
Right.
For years, I never told anybody when I retired because I was too young to retire as a cop. I never told anybody I was a cop because I was embarrassed for that. Secondary question was, wow, you're really young. What'd you do, get on when you're 12? No, I actually tried to kill myself, and, you know, I had to retire. You know, I didn't want that. Now I say, well, I was in an officer-involved shooting.
Right.
And it disarms everything.
Right.
So that's a proof of concept. So everything you're talking about resonates. Even running towards that suffering stuff. I use the terminology running towards a prairie fire, because once you get through it, before it gets too big and it consumes you, you'll be on the other side. You'll be hurt, you'll be damaged, but you're going to be alive. And as long as you're alive,
You just use the word resonate, and that is a very, very close friend to the concept of making sense of things. If your listeners are listening to a conversation like this and all of your episodes, and they go, yeah, I understand that, and they gain this moment of clarity, that's a powerful move right there. But I warn them, I like to warn people that, you know, you're only operating on 5% conscious brain a day. You're going to lose that moment. So the only thing I would challenge and encourage people to do is when you have moments of clarity and you make sense of things, and things resonate with you, go down that hole. Like go further down that. Because if you don't, you're going to get swept right back up into the riptides of life. You know, for the most part, I always say it's true. Life does suck and then you die. So what I encourage people to do is to learn how to operate successfully in the land of suck.
100%. I just had somebody reach out to me on social media, and I want to point this out to you. Her name's Nancy Warnock, and she had a lung transplant. She's just somebody who listens to the show, and she wrote me a little message today. She said, you know, she just started seeing a therapist, and she was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, and she had that moment, right, where she felt that anxiety about going in for the transplant. But she's such a strong person, and she's such a better person for coming out on the other side of this transplant. And I wrote her back and I said, suffering has side effects and they stay with you. But you need to feel this stuff. Just like I need to feel the loss of my friend. I need to feel this stuff because it's an uncomfortable feeling.
Right.
And that way you learn from it. Because once you experience things multiple times, it becomes easier to deal with those situations as they keep coming up. It's practice.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So I've been on Make Sense with with JC. Where can we find that? Let's start with the podcast first.
Yeah. So it's called, you can't miss it. If you look it up, it's called Make Sense with Dr. JC. You'll see the Make Sense glasses. You'll see a yellow background. That's it. And that's all you got to do to find that.
And you're intimately involved in the 2025 Creative Con.
Yeah. I like anything that has to do with the creative process. And what I like about that event is, unlike other events, it's an event where people that are newer to the game can learn how to take their message from their brain and get it out to people. And it's just a great concept, as you know, by our friend Julie Logan.
So I was there in 2024 in February, and I said this before we started airing. Out of everything that I've done, that event
has been fruitful.
Has been one of the most fruitful events I've ever gone to. You, Sonia Chand, Julie, Brian Swift, the Admiral, Gary
Hall.
Gary Hall. I mean, I've met so many different people there, Chris Cushing, that I've just connected with. And these are people from completely different walks of life than I'm used to.
Well, imagine if you and I really got to know each other well, how many people we would meet through each other.
Of course, but that's what you do. When you connect with one person, all of a sudden it radiates out, that ripple effect. So that 2024, and I'm not trying to make an ad for it or anything, but I highly recommend it to anybody who has a spark of creativity.
Yeah.
Because you will meet some people there that just...
And you also learn how to get your message out. Podcasting, writing books, public speaking, producing. Yeah.
And then the book that was launched, which I got a chapter in.
So, the
Creative
co-author book. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. That was an interesting experience, and I encourage everybody to do that.
You actually published 2 books that week.
That was a big week. That was a big week.
Yeah.
But I love that event. And what else do you got coming up?
So I've got a book coming out called Make Sense, discovering the secret of discovering the secret of why shit happens. So that's coming out, hopefully getting picked up by Hay House. That's why I'm in a holding pattern right there. Not what you know, who you know, right?
Of course.
But my new passion is this. I mean, I own some network marketing companies, and I do a lot of transformation. And I do a lot of nutrition and health and stuff. That's where I've made my money, my passive income. But my new passion right now is this thing that I call Make Sense Academy. I'm somebody that probably spent a couple $100,000 on personal growth, and I see the high value in it, but a lot of people can't do that. And there's so many different places where all of the elements of things that you need to learn and the support you need and mentorship. So I had this idea of using the school platform, which is very popular right now, and creating a private community where people get live masterminds every day, coaching, mentoring, and access to any online course, business tool, lesson, and my system that I call the interface response system. All of that in one roof, plus anything that I create for the rest of my life for $24 a month. Now, that it sounds crazy to do that, but we beta tested it, and the people that are in it absolutely love it. They don't understand how I can facilitate it and fund it, but now it's growing. So I like the idea of group coaching, because one of the things that I learned is I can't help everybody. I can guide them, but when they collaborate with everybody else in the group, that's where the big lessons are. So that's called the Make Sense Academy. If people follow me on Instagram at Dr. JC Doornick, follow my podcast, you'll know everything about it.
And there's one episode you did on your podcast that is particularly interesting. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's mine. Don't
PTSD.
worry. It's mine.
I got some interest. I just interviewed the wife of Jordan Belfort. I'm sure you heard about her.
Sure.
Wolf of Wall Street. And
She's been in this studio.
oh, she has. You met Nadine.
I haven't.
Oh.
One of the other people who recorded in the
You gotta have
studio.
her on the show. She'd be great. But yeah, I like to take interesting, just like your episode. I like to take concepts that make people go, like PTSD and police officer stuff. That was a great episode. But I like to help people make sense of them. So I like to ask questions and let people share their stories and have my listeners go, yeah, I get it, and then become empowered.
I think you owe CNC Music Factory some royalties for things that make you go, Yeah. I think it was CNC Music Factory.
That's a popular podcast name.
All right, so we can go to Dr. JC Doornick on Instagram. You have a website?
Yeah, so website is still riseupwithdragon.com, or you can go to makesensepodcast.com. They both go to the same place. But listen, you want to talk to me, I'm easy to find. I'm everywhere. I've got so many different things going on. But I guess what I would say is I'm interested in helping people that are looking for help, but also ready. That's an important thing. My conversation is going to be best served with somebody that kind of woke up with that fierce urgency of now, and they're ready for change. If they're not, they can listen to my podcast and they can get to that point. But I can't help somebody that's not ready to be helped.
So, JC, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and I end each show every week the same way. You've gone through some suffering in order to make your transformation, in order to get where you are today. And if it hasn't taught you something, boy, what a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
So I want to know from you, what has your suffering taught you?
Just to embrace it. Like some people, the Stoics say, the obstacle is the way. Suffering, suffering's an interesting word, because suffering is a word that indicates that challenges are tough. So I would maybe use a universal way of I like to call it the suck, but the number one main ingredient that is required for you to get everything that you currently want, the number one main ingredient is adversity. So, the next time suffering rears up, maybe just take a little bit of a pause and find the lesson, find the value in it, and listen to both Kevin's story and my story. We've both shared stories that say that the craziest, worst thing that ever happened to us is the greatest thing ever. So why wouldn't it be the same for you? And if you can learn, Brandy Carlisle has a great song called The Eye. Says you can dance in a hurricane, but only when you're standing in the eye. At any time during your life when you're in a hurricane, there's always the eye. And that's it. That's it. Anything's possible when you become a possibility thinker.
I like that a lot, and I can't thank you enough for coming in here. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, it's always fun.
I think I learned more here than I have in 195 episodes. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. It's great.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Transformations with JC Doornick, a.k.a. The Dragon. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. There's a cost to success. Light and dark are definitely decisions. Give people some space when they need it. Save the drama for your mama. But most importantly, embrace what scares you and embrace your suffering. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.